What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. And at some point, right, you just got to be like, I got played. I mean, you've been, I mean, okay, let me start over. Because I have the thought in my mind, but it's not coming out correctly. Now, when you look at this and you hear these statements, you if you've been a supporter of this all along, the first thought that should come to your mind is, so this whole thing has been a joke the whole time, right? Like, what are we doing here? It makes no sense, right? But of course, those people that have cognitive dissonance and have bought into this, they won't remember what was being said a year ago, right? When even Mr. Joey himself and the rest of the Democrat Party were saying, oh, the medicines are not okay, they're not safe, how can you trust it, yada, yada, yada. Then complete 180, right? Now we're seeing a complete 180. And this just goes to show that you can't put your trust in no man. You can't put your trust in a politician. You can't put your trust in anything other than if you're, I mean, it depends on what you believe, right? If you're religious, then obviously you put your trust and your faith in God. But if you're not religious, this goes to show you that you can't trust what they're telling you. And it becomes even more critical to have independent thinking and to be able to digest and think through information on your own. Look at the data. What are the numbers showing you? And here it says, well, he said that there wasn't a solution on a grand scale. Okay, I'm going to be careful here because the overlords are watching, all right? And so all his promises on shutting down the, turbulent particle that's in the air, yeah, that was just all talk. But this is where it gets interesting. Here's a more serious, sobering thought. He said that it's up to the individual states to do what he had promised. And what does this mean? If you guys watch Ben Shapiro, you know that he has stated that the states have a lot of power. Okay? And what this means is you see what's happening in New York, right? I don't know if you guys have seen. I'll show you right now. I think it's in here. The clip it actually is not. The clip of the Burger King, right? A guy was going to get a burger or whatever, but he was getting arrested by cohort of NYPDs because he didn't have his, green pass, let's call it. And same thing happened with a little kid. So you're telling me you're going to go and bring in a dozen NYPD officers to arrest someone who doesn't have a green pass, but you're not out there stopping the crime that's going on? Like, what? This is literally taking it back to 1930s and 40s. Literally, folks, we're going back to Germany. Anyways, that was a side note. But here is an important part where he says it's up to the individual states. And this is going to get solved at a state level. And here it says this is where ultimately it gets down to where the rubber meets the road. That's where the patient is in need of help, preventing the need for help. Okay. Now, I'm going to play the clip. Actually, I'm not going to play this clip. I'll just talk about it. But when you start seeing what New York and California are doing, they're implementing their own laws. And what's concerning is, okay, there's a mass exodus from all these California states, all these New York states, and they're all going to Florida and Texas, which is fine, right? But if those same people are bringing their same voting rights to these new states. I'm not saying that's everyone because that's not the case. But if they're in search of freedom, but then they end up voting the same way they did in California, then the same thing's going to happen to these Texas and Florida states, right? You know, there's that bumper sticker that says don't California my Texas, or don't, New York my Florida, etc., etc. And that's concerning. Well, people should have the right to choose wherever they want to be. It comes down to, well, you're seeking for the freedom and liberty, and you go to these other states, but then you end up converting that state as well. So then you end up in the same spot that you originally were. And that's what's very, very frustrating, right? If you're going to be for all those policies, just stay where you're at. Because you're eventually going to cause the same policies to be implemented in the other state. Nevertheless, I digress. But I think that people should be able to have the freedom. But don't be a hypocrite. That's the bottom line. Don't be a hypocrite. Because your decisions will cost the freedoms of others. And it's very frustrating. It's very frustrating. And I mean, I don't even have words to really say much other than, folks, come on. Not the people on this channel, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But it's the people who it's unfortunate that they're still, clinging on to their trust, to their hope in a man, right? When they clearly have seen time and time again that the narrative and the goalpost keeps getting moved. And I think these are the things that need to be said. Because so many people say they say they're for one thing, but when it doesn't benefit them, oh, okay, then they're for the other. There's no consistency. That's the word. If we could all just be consistent, just things would be a lot different than they are now. But no, things aren't that way, and we don't live in a perfect world. So that's just my little 2 cents. I hope that this at least shows you that, hey, this is going to come down to each individual state. And right now, the whole OSHA mandate or whatnot is going to the Supreme Court. And I believe, based on what Amy Coney Barrett did, right, the Supreme Court Justice with Indiana University, where she allowed for the state to decide, right? She did when the students of Indiana University asked the Supreme Court to stop these mandates, they didn't side with the students, right? They allowed for the state to choose. And I think that that's what's going to happen with this. If the Supreme Court is going to leave it up to the states, I believe. And you're going to see that, I mean, most of these Democratic-run states are probably going to start implementing, or will start implementing, albeit it'll be at a different pace than one another, but they'll start implementing these mandates. And so you're going to see a lot of people flocking to different areas where they can, sustain their freedoms. But then this goes back to my point on just be consistent. You're seeking for freedom, but then you're gonna end up voting or implementing the same policies you once had, then taking the freedoms of other people in a different state. So I guess this just is a way of me, explaining the frustrations that I have personally, right? But also realizing where this is all going. And so This is the rant for the day. Hope you guys were able to garner a little bit of the information that I presented, but this is where it looks like it's headed, and you just got to be prepared. Okay, whether that be financially or geographically, it's different for everyone, and you got to figure out what's the best thing for you to do. So, without further ado, this is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.